largest SCRA settlement in its history, aiding thousands of service members. This landmark case was instrumental in our Congress amending the laws that protect our military members all over the world. These amendments are named after Matt's case and are contained in a book Matt wrote, A Soldier's Home. Mr. Cooper is one of the founders of the Servicemen's Civil Relief Act Foundation, of which he is the director. He's been featured in many major newspapers, as well as appearances on the CBS Evening News, along with General Petraeus. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to present Matt Cooper.
Well, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. But it's my honor to be here tonight. I always welcome the opportunity to talk about the rights and protections that are afforded to who I believe are our nation's most precious asset. Those that have served and those that are serving. Veterans of foreign wars, your guests, thank you for having me and my family here tonight. We know what those letters VFW stands for. They strike you to the core. They have meanings at many different levels. In addition to veterans of foreign wars, I like to think of vigilance for our warriors. And what that means is we, and I love that we have young people here today, we have to be vigilant to protect those that protect us. And I want to share a few stories about vigilance for our warriors. Many years ago, for some of you, it probably seems like yesterday, a friend of mine came back from the Vietnam War. He had 3 Purple Hearts and a Navy Cross. But he was told, as he traveled from the jungles of Vietnam home to the Los Angeles airport, do not leave that airport with your uniform on. So this war hero hid in a bathroom in the Los Angeles airport, getting out of his uniform. So vigilance for our warriors requires me that when I'm in a room like this, and I know I have Vietnam veterans here, I say to you, welcome home. Welcome home, and thank you for your service. Vigilance for our warriors means that when my Marine son and my Airman son travel anywhere in this country, all the airports have VIP lounges. What a difference from hiding in a bathroom to being able to hang out in a VIP lounge. But we always have to be vigilant. We always have to be protecting those who protect us. Because it wasn't that many years ago that Sergeant Hurley, a soldier from right here in southwest Michigan, went to the war in Iraq. Sergeant Hurley found himself on a base in the middle of what came to be known as the Bloody Triangle. While Sergeant Hurley was in the Bloody Triangle, Deutsche Bank, one of our world's largest and strongest banks, illegally foreclosed on his home. Illegally foreclosed on his home. This was a home that he had had for 15 years before he left for the war. It was a beautiful home, set deep in the woods, high on a ridge overlooking the Paw Paw River. He had built barns, he had built a beautiful workshop, he loved to work on his trucks. It was a beautiful homestead. But while he was in Iraq in the Bloody Triangle, Deutsche Bank illegally foreclosed on that home. Not only did they illegally foreclose on that home, but while he was in Iraq, they removed his mother, wife, and children. His welcome home was to find somebody else living in his home. You know, it's asking too much for when you go home after this weekend, you know, to think that somebody else will be living in your home. But just think for a moment, when you go home, all your stuff is gone. Your guns, your golf clubs, your fishing poles, your tackle boxes, your clothes, all your tools from that workshop that you built. It's all gone. What do you do when you come back from a war with no home, no car, and no stuff? And by the way, even though that foreclosure was illegal, it ruined his credit. No home, no car, no stuff, no credit. You can't rent an apartment without credit. What do? Try finding a lawyer that knows anything about the SCRA. A lot of you may remember that as the Soldiers and Sailors Civil Relief Act. It's now known as the Servicemembers Civil Relief Act. He talked to JAG officers in Iraq. His family talked to JAG officers back here in the States. Try finding a private attorney that knows anything about the SCRA. He talked to dozens of attorneys before one day I happened to see him. And young folks, vigilance for our warriors. We have to do something. Vigilance for our warriors required me to do something for Sergeant Hurley and his family. What am I going to do? Small fry and paw. I'm going to sue Deutsche Bank? Well, I did. I sued them in federal court, and that federal lawsuit didn't last a year, didn't last 2 years, or 3 or 4. I was poking a big bear, and that bear had a lot to hide. After 5 years in federal court, I don't want to ruin the ending for you. But after 5 years in federal court, I find out the United States Department of Justice was following me on this case. And because of what we uncovered, the Department of Justice was able to obtain the largest SCRA settlement in their history, because not just Deutsche Bank, but other banks were making these illegal actions against our soldiers and our service members. Because of what happened in the Hurley case, the laws that go back to George Washington received congressional amendments that are referred to as the Hurley Amendments. We have to be vigilant for those that are protecting us. I have found no greater reward than representing active duty service members and now veterans. I've started the SCRA Foundation to help active duty service members. I've started the Armed Forces Foundation to help veterans. I recently started the VA Disability Law Center. I'm telling you, there's no greater reward than helping those that are helping us and protecting us. So that's why I was so honored to be here tonight, because the rights and protections of those that are serving us are vitally important to our nation. Thank you very much.